Welcome to The Explainer. We're diving into a pretty radical idea today. What happens when a single company gets so powerful it can basically hold an entire country hostage? And what if the only way out is something called a corporate death penalty?
So let's just jump right in. We're going back to a crisis that unfolded in December of 2025. It was a situation that one report called a modern hostage situation, and it really forced a whole nation to ask this terrifying question: who's really in charge here?
So yeah, this all centers on India's biggest airline, Indigo. And it's about what went down when some brand new, really important safety rules were finally put to the test. Okay, to really get what happened, you have to see just how dominant this one airline was. I mean, look at this. By late 2025, Indian aviation wasn't just a duopoly, it was super lopsided. Indigo, all by itself, controlled almost two-thirds of the entire domestic market. That is a level of control you just don't see in most other major countries. But that chart isn't even the whole story. The really crucial part is this number, 600. That's the number of routes where Indigo was the only choice, the only one. For hundreds of communities, if Indigo decided not to fly, you were just stuck, stranded. And that structural power, that's the key to everything that's about to happen. So what lit the fuse on this whole crisis? It was a new set of safety rules. The goal was simple and really important: reduce pilot fatigue, to stop accidents before they happen. And the thing is, this wasn't some surprise that came out of nowhere. The entire industry had almost 2 full years to get ready, hire more pilots, and tweak their schedules. But instead of adjusting, the airline's schedule just completely fell apart. In early December 2025, first it was hundreds, then it was thousands of flights getting canceled every single day. Airports just turned into total chaos. For a country of over 1 billion people, it was like the main artery of its transportation system had just been severed. So, you've got to ask, was this just a massive screw-up? Was it just incompetence? Well, according to the experts cited in this report, it was something way more sinister. They argue this whole meltdown wasn't an accident at all, but a calculated move. The idea? Create so much pain, so much chaos for the public that you pressure the government into rolling back those very safety rules meant to protect people. And this whole unbelievable crisis is what led the report's author to dig up a radical solution, one that's actually based on a very old idea: the corporate death penalty. It boils down to this: when a company can hold a nation hostage, should we even let it exist in that form? Now, to really wrap our heads around this, we have to understand a key concept from the report. It's called corporate sovereignty. And it's the heart of the problem, right? It's when a company gets so huge, so critical to how a country functions, that it can basically start acting like its own government, and even defy the actual government. And the proposed fix for that? Well, it's this corporate death penalty. But listen, the goal isn't to just shut everything down and leave people stranded. It's about terminating the monopoly's power. We're talking about huge interventions, like breaking the company up, or even having the government take it over. Okay, so this whole idea might sound totally extreme, right? A death penalty? But what's fascinating is that it's not new at all. The report shows this is actually part of a long historical pattern, where governments have had to step in and deal with companies that just got too big to control. I mean, just look at this timeline. You can see a really clear pattern here. It goes all the way back to the original company that acted like a state, the East India Company, which was literally dissolved by the British Crown. And it continues right up to modern giants like Standard Oil and AT&T, which were broken up by the US government. Time and again, states have been forced to step in and pull the plug on unchecked corporate power.
But maybe the most chilling parallel in the report is this one: Railtrack in the UK. Back in 2000, this privatized rail monopoly cut corners on maintenance. They literally ignored cracked rails, all to boost their profits, and it led to a deadly crash. The British government's response? They terminated the company. The report makes the case that ignoring pilot fatigue rules is the airline version of those cracked rails. It's a disaster just waiting to happen.
So, okay, if history gives us the justification, how would something like this even work in practice? I mean, how do you deal with a monopoly like this without just grounding the entire country?
And this table really shows exactly why this situation blew up into such a massive crisis, specifically in India. If you compare it to places like the US or China, you see this extreme dependency on just one airline, tons of those monopoly routes we talked about, and frankly, not a lot of great alternatives for travel. It was basically the perfect storm for a corporate hostage situation.
So, drawing from all those history lessons, the report lays out 3 potential solutions. First, you've got the rail track option. The government steps in temporarily to run things and enforce the rules. Second is the AT&T option. You use antitrust laws to break the company up into smaller airlines that actually have to compete with each other. And third, a really bold one, the open skies option. You let foreign airlines fly domestic routes, which would create instant competition and shatter the monopoly, pretty much overnight.
When you really look at all of this, the meltdown, the historical parallels, these potential solutions, it all forces us to ask one very fundamental question. Who really has the final say?
The author's conclusion is that this crisis was never just about a logistical failure. It was a direct challenge to sovereignty. It was the company making a bet that it was more important to the nation than the nation's own laws. And the final argument is that a bet like that should never, ever be allowed to pay off.
And that really leaves us with what might be the central question of our time. As corporations get more and more powerful, are our governments actually still equipped to be the final authority? And if they aren't, then who is?